order the regular school board meeting of the Madison Central School District, Monday, June 19th. Mr. Brooks will record the members present or absent. We do have a quorum, so let's move on to item number 4, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. No additions to the agenda, so at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Moore has the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On our consent agenda, items 7 through 9, we have 2 sets of minutes. Our regular meeting of May 18th and a special meeting that was held on June 13th. Mr. Moore, Mr. Miller, and myself went through the bills, and everything I think looked pretty much in order. Mr. Jorgensen, do you want to talk about personnel actions then?
Sure, we have a couple resignations. Jerry Yonke from high school paraprofessional and Dennis Beeson from high school custodian. Will be later in June for Dennis. Hiring Cody Sella and Austin Olson for summer custodial at 865. Also Marshall Dennert as a driver for the driver's education wheel instructor at 19. And then the contract change for 17-18 will be Joe Bundy from a BA to BA plus 15. Aaron Riedel from MA to MA plus 15. And then Stacy Anderson, varsity girls basketball.
Okay, so we have personnel changes also as a part of the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7 through 9.
So moved.
Mr. Miller has the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Nelson has the second with a little prodding. Okay. Yep.
For driver's ed with Marshall, was that in addition to the other 2, or?
No, Mrs. Unbrenner isn't
driving.
doing the driving.
Okay,
she
she's
did
not
some
doing
class
the
driving,
driving.
she wasn't doing driving this year. So just with not sheer numbers with one to do it.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question, Sean. Any other questions or discussion before we go on the vote? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the consent items 7 through 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare motion is passed. Don't believe we have item 11, any potential conflicts. Dr. Cook has given us his middle school report, and we have a chance to view that. We have our list of surplus items that sold at the Prairie Village auction. Mr. Jorgensen, you probably have some other items for the administrator report?
Just a couple. Congrats to the boys track team on the 3rd place finish, and also to the girls track team on their state championship and the coaches involved. Currently, again, we have our certified staffings filled. SRO contract that we've been working on. We have one that's in place through December 31st of 2018, so a year and a half that we have that in place. So we will start working the fall again on working that out as far as moving it past the December 31st of 2018. Middle school boiler projects moving forward. The boilers are all taken out right now. I see some motors are up in there, some pumps I should say are up in there, but the boilers aren't in yet, but that'll take place probably within the next month, I would assume. Dr. Cook got the information as well. Our Makerspace program, Makerspace Lab will receive the Little Red Schoolhouse Award from school administrators of South Dakota, and that'll take place in the August at the joint convention, early to mid-August. I don't know the dates off the top of my head when that takes place. So, and then of course we'll have a number of projects taking place here after July 1st with sidewalks and so on.
Mr. Brooks, anything you want to add to the administrator's report?
Our bond sale happened, and we got above the 400,000 savings. So that'll occur just in the last week, and then the new bond payments will start in August. But that was a good thing.
Dr. Cook, anything other than the handbook? All right.
I would like to thank you for your reports, Dr. Cook.
No, thank you.
They're good.
Good, thank you.
Feature kids and learning.
Thank you.
Great things. Which leads us then, Dr. Cook, number 13. I don't know whether that's an omen or not, but number 13 for the review of the Madison Middle School handbook and
If
change.
you could just, yeah, open that up and.
The handbook or the changes?
Yeah, go to just a handbook, I got change copies for these guys.
Thank you, sir.
Which one? Just, would you run down, everything in the handbook stayed the same. I worked with Tom again this year, and we went through it again, down to page 6, I think it is, for me, please.
This is 6, is that what you?
Yeah, down to computer use. Right, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
What changed on computer use was, we're, essentially now we're one-to-one at the school, but they're not really allowed to take them home. And had some conversations with Mr. Jorgensen and Mr. Brooks. It's different than the high school now. So because they can't take it home, they also lose control of their product for a while. And so sometimes there are things that do occur to those computers where a kid walks in and grabs them and pulls one out from the top of the 4, and they kind of come down and you get a piece of the rubber tore off or something happens like that. So it's really difficult for us to say we're going to charge them an insurance piece when they don't always control their device. And so, but one of the things that we do want to take care of, those middle school kids sometimes can be middle school kids, and they can walk by and knock something off a desk on purpose, messing with somebody, or running down the hallway and they hit somebody and the computer flies. We just wanted to make sure the parents knew that, you know, if it's a wanton violence, if they really vandalize somebody else's computer, that they'll be charged for it. And so we'll just follow that under the vandalism policy. We'll just put it there instead. And that's just to keep kids from, or holding kids accountable, I guess, to damaging somebody's property, just as you would if it was an iPhone or if it was something else that went on in the school, that we'd call that some form of vandalism. Not an iPhone, excuse me, an iPad. So that's number 6, that's really the only change there, really the last line. Go ahead, scroll, if you go to page 7 then. And go to grading. And the changes there, again, were pretty simple, they're more cosmetic than anything. We don't have student-led conferences anymore, so I just took that piece out that we have parent-teacher conferences. We also we do have 7-week grading, but I took that out because that's not always the case. We have a couple of classes that are on semester-based grading, 2 of them at PE and tech apps. So there's different ways to do that, so whoops, sorry guys. But that's what we changed there on that particular piece. So we just took a few things out and just kind of cleaned it up, and then Tom wanted me to make sure that we talk about introducing parents to Infinite Campus, which we do that at our first open house meetings and such. And so that's what we did. That's what the handbook changes were this year.
Any questions, comments? If not, then I would entertain a motion that we approve the changes, which then also would allow us to approve the Madison Middle School handbook. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Mr. Moore, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Further questions or discussion? If not, thank you very much. Dr. Cook?
With permission from Sean, can I go home and relieve my mother from my grandson?
I told you, I told you.
Thanks, Dr.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. All right, working on our agenda, then we'll continue on down to item number 17 would be the next item that we would work with. And that would be to consider the trade of our slightly used 26, oh, he's back.
He thought about what I said.
Yeah.
Our slightly used 2016 Gale skid steer loader from Lake County for a new 2017 skid steer loader at no cost. So, is that Mr. Nelson who made the move?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare motion has passed. Item number 18, County Health Nurse. Mr. Brooks or Mr. Jorgensen?
We just entered into the agreement again, but it did change. I think it was it 20 before, now it's 30. an hour.
Per hour, yeah.
And state provide 45 hours. That's down from what we requested in the past.
Okay. So to renew our agreement with the South Dakota Department of Health through the county health nurse, increase in fees but decrease in hours, would there be a motion to have that occur? So moved by Mr. Nelson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the county health nurse through the South Dakota Department of Health agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that has passed. Quotes for the fuel. Steve, you want to click on that?
So what we do each year is we bid a margin. The state bids the Sioux Falls area on a daily basis. And then what we bid is a margin on top of that to deliver it to, or bring up into the Madison area. On the day in which we purchase the fuel, we'll pay what the Sioux Falls bid happened, where they sell thousands of gallons within a day. We sort of piggyback off that, and then they put their margin on top of it. So you can see we had Cold Petroleum and FM Co-op bid. Cold Petroleum was low on all 4 fuel types that we selected. So in essence, if it was $2 per gallon, it would be $2.03, 3.9 cents per gallon. So our recommendation is to go with Cold Petroleum for this next school year.
So moved. Mr. Moore makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the low bid on the fuel from Kohl's signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Declare that is passed. Do you want to go into the lease agreement in 4 minutes, or?
Well, I think it depends on how much discussion we've been looking at.
We can always step away probably.
Okay. We've been looking at options for some time. The Booster Club approached us wanting to replace the coach bus. And what we did is they did kind of a little selection process. Looked at new coaches, used coaches, and some different alternatives. What we found that looks like it works really well. I don't know if anybody's seen it when it was here the day they kind of brought it by. It sort of looks like a semi towards the front, not a school bus, but a bus towards the back that has the coach seating, the display screens, the under storage. Another school, Winter, uses this type of bus. And so that was the one that's kind of selected. The bus itself is $217,000. The new coach was in the 810,000s. Used coaches were between, depending on what you use, 200 to 700,000. But this gives us the cushy seating, the leg spacing, the air conditioning, all the things. It doesn't have a bathroom, which we actually thought was a plus to not have in there. And so then what we kind of worked out, the Booster Club had already bought for it on their side, a 5-year lease, and they would pay year 1. So we would be about $39,000 per year for the 5 years, and they would pay the first year on it, and then we would take over years 2 through 5 on that. We did select a lease in which we could do an early buyout at no additional cost. So if we decide in year 2 or 3 to just pay off the remainder, we could at no penalty or no added interest to that. The rate on it is 3.19%. And if we order it this month, it should show up mid-August. And the Booster Club is also going to put kind of a wrap on the side of it, on the boardwalk, with a few samples that we had.
They're taking care of that.
Yeah.
And we'll keep the old coach?
We had discussions back and forth on it. For what we potentially get for, we thought we'd try to keep it running for another year. If we had to put money into it, we wouldn't. We would end up to sell, or we might not get much for the coach, but we may get something for the motor that's within it.
Because that was just a rebuild, what, 3 years ago?
Yeah. Right on.
On there. I think it's another example of the Booster Club coming forward and providing an opportunity for us to do something nice for our students and things. At the end of the lease program, it would be ours regardless, or is there still a buyout amount at the end of the lease?
Actually, after the first year, we have the option to return it or not.
Okay,
So that's ours after year 1.
okay,
So we have the decision then to make. But
okay. With that information, are we ready to have a motion and move forward, or do you want to table this and go into our budget hearing?
Well, that'll be able to use a band, everybody will use that in all activities?
Yeah, yep.
What year is it?
It's a 2017, it'll be built actually. It hasn't been built yet, so it'll be built here.
And it's, the initial cost was what?
217,000.
How many can seat it, or how many?
It seats, was this one 59 or 62?
Yeah, I want to say it was 59 for some reason.
So that does accommodate
It's 6
each
larger
level
than
of
that current.
activity for the kids.
You know, it's like, with like a football, we still need a secondary bus. Depending on how many teams I guess are going, but it would fit them better than our current coach, which I think is a 54. 52 or 54.
And the lease payment was $39,000.
Yeah, it was just under that 38,897.
So then at the end of, what is it, 5 years?
Yeah.
It goes back to them, or we
No,
can?
but it's ours. We have it at year one is where we have the.
So this is brand new for 200?
Haven't made it yet.
They'll build it, us and winter at the same time.
Do they limit the miles on the lease agreement, or is?
No, because it's pretty much ours.
It's just a purchase, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty much a purchase.
The
Yeah.
booster club's put up 39 grand.
Yeah, they're gonna pay, the first payment will be due, I believe, in August.
I vote for that.
So that's a motion, Mr. Nelson?
That's a motion.
It'd be a motion that we consider, or that we approve a lease agreement for a new activity bus. Would there be a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Further questions or discussion?
No, it should mention it's Bell Bank out of Bismarck.
This month.
Is a leasing agent.
And by using them, then we can still return the bus, otherwise if we just took a loan, it would be ours. Reason we use that bank.
What would be the reason to send it back?
You know, if it's just a decent purchase, if we just felt it didn't meet our needs, I mean, we can't, we wrote on it, tested it, we talked to school that had one. I can't think of necessarily of a reason, but so hopefully it wouldn't be.
This is an option.
Yep,
Yeah.
just
If it would
asking.
happen.
Yeah, just, you know, with the size of the dollar amount, if we're investing that much into it, I'll make sure it is exactly, we'll have it for a lot of years.
Well, it takes the load off of the buses.
Yep.
So it's part of the whole bus.
Well, I think it makes our students feel good too to have something like that.
Cross traveling distance right now isn't always good.
Yeah. It would keep our, everyone closer distance, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor of approval of a lease agreement for a new activity bus signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Declare the motion is passed. The time has come, slightly past, for the annual Mitchell Brooks budget presentation.
You guys excited for this?
We are pumped and ready.
Thinking about it all day.
Have ya?
Yeah,
Me too. I'll steal the.
he was telling me he had to take some relaxation pills today. He was so pumped.
I practiced, that's why we changed the tables a little bit, so I can get a better angle with my laser pointer. Did I get it front? Okay. Okay. So let me, we'll kind of quick through the overview. So with our budget, last month we had a preliminary budget, this is now the proposed. Few small changes that change through it as different agreements come through. We can see our proposed budget along the top, current year budget right below it, and then the differences. So that's kind of where things netted out. We have our finance and our expenditures below, but we'll go through the sheet that has all those details and we'll tie it back in. I just wanted you to see kind of there where our fund balance use is projected to be along there. I'll go into the document now. I use my actual Excel sheet. There's more behind them, but you can see the hidden columns and stuff. But here's we got we got our current budget.
Remember the button you got to push.
And then our prior, and our current, our projected, and then our year prior. And so most of these budgets will be very similar in style. You have your salaries, temporary, which is subbing and long-term subbing, aids, you know, the benefit piece of Social Security, retirement, health, the worker comp, registrations, professional technical, which is like professional development and others, travel, telephone, supplies, and there's usually a few other, but, so this is our elementary, kind of educational, the 11 on it means it's educational. So you can see kind of the elementary budget, how it's changed. Not a lot changes other than salary pieces, but I really want you to see is what you know, the function is, and then what the dollar amounts are, and then where we were in the prior years. Within the elementary function, there's a Title II class size reduction. These are federal dollars we get for a staff member. Those have changed just slightly, projected from the last year. So you can see our total elementary, kind of how that change occurred. Now let's kind of go through each of the functions. Here's the middle school. You can see where salary changes, and most everything's relatively similar in how the middle school had changed. And then I'll go to the high school function. You can see the salary, go through benefits, everything's pretty much in the same order where the change happened. High school has another function within it. They have the CTE grant, which is now gone. It's been gone for a couple years. And then they have Perkins or OAG. So you can see there's the total high school right there. The 153 is a change on that. And then here's this is our Perkins piece. Federal dollars we get for our FACS class and our OAG classes. Then we have a Title I program. Title I is again federal dollars. We haven't received our allocation for next year yet. They're not sure when that will come out. So what we did is we set it at what we received this year. In the past couple of years, we've spent some of the reserves that we've had in Title I. We don't have any carrying forwards. We kind of set at the amount we'd had. So you'll notice we removed a tutor position from Title I and then moved it into up into the elementary fund. Actually, we didn't. Title I, we removed it from the title. That's the library that we moved. I'll touch on that over there.
You open your questions now, or should we wait till the end?
Any questions anytime?
Okay, because I know you like questions, because
Yeah.
then you get the interaction. We've
Okay.
talked about this before,
Yeah.
and it breaks it up a little bit. So the question would be,
Needs to be broken up.
when you were gonna go do that, because we always do have to come up with some, it's always like we're undershooting the budget on Title I, because there's
Okay.
always like a hidden expense or something. But I think there's a reason why we do that, or is there a reason why?
With title, usually like last year's allocation was 176,870, but we had 181 available to us, so we kind of budgeted for that. And this year we spent just a tad more than that. Next year we don't want to over budget in it because we're pretty sure our funds will be decreased, just from what we're hearing on the federal side.
All right.
So we had to reduce a halftime aid out of the title.
Oh,
On that. So that's our.
but I think those expenses are gonna still be there. We just got shorted on the funding of it, so we
Well, with
adjusted our
the-
budget.
With the title, that expense disappeared. We took it out of the title. We hired that halftime person into a different position
And, okay,
and
so.
then shifted it. So we didn't add anything to the budget.
Okay.
And we didn't.
All right.
We add like 7,000.
I think I understand how that works.
Sorry, yeah. I kind of mixed up the library because that was a different, it tied into the same position, but, which we'll kind of cover. And then we have a little more title that we get in private schools, which will be down further on that. Our law enforcement, this is our SRO agreement that we have with the city and the county. Here's our guidance department. You can see salaries, benefits, pretty similar to the next year. We used to have a grant from a few years ago, but we haven't received in the last few years. Health services, this is for nursing services for students. And then this is our curriculum developer, professional development, curriculum director, professional development director position. Here's our school library. This other pieces, the benefits. They have some online databases. They have a series of online databases. Some can be taken from Capital LA because they structured the books, and some of them are more of the reference, and those have to get into the general fund. Technology in schools. This is Mr. Millage's department right here. You can see the different pieces to that. And the difference in this one is we changed, the director used to be paid out of professional services, now it's paid out of wages. You can see in that. Board of Education, left it just the same. Our insurance actually, came in almost identical to last year, which is very nice. Our worker comp was down quite a bit, which we see a little bit of. Election, we haven't had one for a while, so I'm hoping the wages still are current. Our legal services, we kind of look at prior years and where things might be and kind of have an average of carry forward. And that's been meeting our need. Audit services, with the engagement letter they sent us, it was $300 increase from the prior year. Graduation, kind of what we do for supplies and diplomas, they're really great for that. The office of the superintendent, see the changes for that. This is the principal's office and under the state functions, the 2410, all principal's offices are located in one spot, so it's all offices together. You can see the changes there. This is the general fund portion of our educational co-op of the director. Not much change there. Medicaid claiming fee, we pay a fee to participate in the Medicaid claiming process. And then this is the fiscal services and business office. We had some changes in this one because we hired a person that's a Madison employee that will do the services for Prairie Lakes. And so it increases that position, but then you'll see on the revenue side that what we're billing and we'll bring in more than it costs us. And it was a win-win because we are less expensive than where they were prior. And so Prairie Lakes saves money and then we get more on the other side, so it worked both ways very well. Then benefit changes, and so that was one of our big changers for the year, having that position. Here's our upkeep of building and grounds, and then our wage pieces. And then we have like our electricity and water and all that. But I did want to find, we spend, it's a significant amount. We spend about a little over $1 million per year maintaining our facilities, and we have a lot of pride in our facilities, and we have very large square footages, and it is quite an expense to keep these maintained. I know.
Why is there two regular salaries? Is it two groups?
Yeah, administration with them, and then so they're the director and the assistant director,
Okay.
and then
one other one. Rentals. What is it? What do we?
when we rent, we'll rent out like building facility agreements and stuff like that. And then we rent porta potties, and we'll rent some facilities from DSU, and so if we're renting kind of facilities, that's where that comes from. Like the spring, or one of the dances, right prom actually, we rent our facility, and so there's a few things like that we rent.
That also would include our rental and football field?
Yeah, football field rental, yeah. Yeah. And then our property insurance. Down there, just like a change to it. I think our insurance rate does pretty well for what we have. Here's our, so this is our bus route transportation. This is the general fund side of the expenses. This has no activities. This is just for the routes, but then it's maintenance on all buses. It has to do with our salary.
Say that again?
So it's our routes, it's maintenance on all buses, and then it's all of our routes and general fund. Activities we have a little bit later, which you'll see on that, but, so that's.
That isn't the capital outlay part, that's just the maintenance and upkeep.
Yeah. And the capital outlay portions will be if we're doing large projects, but yeah. And then here's our printing and publishing. This is our what we pay for our printing and toner expenses, supplies up to the staples and things like that, and then the paper. We ordered this year 9 pallets of paper, 40 boxes per pallet, which is similar. We did about 8.5 last year. But a lot of paper that goes through the school.
How many trees is that?
Lots. Yeah. Then our newsletter that we send out prior to school starting goes to everybody in the district. The supplies for it, the postage for it. Placement services with the Teacher Placement Center, where we advertise. Oops, oh, that's it, sorry. And then here we get to our non-public school portions. When we purchase curriculum required, if the non-public schools want the same curriculum, we then provide them for that for them. And that's where that comes from. Title II, which is federal dollars, they're entitled to a portion of that. And then our Title I, we still service Title I to students whether they're in private schools or not. So that's what we pay in salaries to have a person go into the schools and provide the services.
We're reimbursed,
But on the title we are.
On the federal.
but not on the textbooks?
No. That's part of our requirement, but, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the last few curriculums, they've adopted the whole process. Not always, sometimes they've just taken textbooks, but they have the right to take the same as we provide to our students. And it does work well for when they do come into 6th, 7th grade and they have the same series as we have.
You do that in Sioux Falls too, for those private schools?
If that school chooses to. Yeah. They can't buy different curriculum, it's gotta be the curriculum we have, but, yeah. And then that was the title. The foundation office, this changed a little bit because in the past, we paid it out of payroll and they reimbursed us back. Now they're paying it as a contract service and then we're paying back our portion of that. And we pay, I believe it's 45%, 40% next year of that. And then unemployment, we don't have much of that. Every once in a while, claim or two comes through. Then with this, we'll go into our co-curricular. You'll just kind of notice kind of what the activity is and what the dollar amount is. It's always good to see what our activities do cost us. So football, high school football is 34.8. And middle school football, you can see that.
But that still doesn't include travel, correct?
No, this is not travel. The travel will be coming up later. This is just for the salaries and supplies and then referees and all that kind of stuff. High school basketball, and this is boys, sports 61 of boys. So that's high school boys basketball.
And professional and technical would be your officials.
Officials and clocks and
Yep.
shot clock and, yeah. And then entry fees if there's a tournament or something. Middle school boys basketball.
You do a good job.
Yeah. High school wrestling. See, middle school wrestling. High school girls basketball. And then middle school girls basketball. And then gymnastics. Is this one K-Pace? Just kind of
Yep.
middle school gymnastics. And some of them are just the salaries only, some of them like gymnastics, they order everything with the high school. Girls volleyball. Middle school volleyball. And here's cheerleading. Here's our transportation. So with transportation, the salaries of the drivers and the benefits, the work comp, then the travel. Travel has to do with, if you notice in the last couple of years, we've always done a supplemental budget for this travel. And that is, and we'll talk about it later, but we've done really well. And so like when our teams are going to stay at like the stay days, they'll, their motel room will come out of here also. For a team to go, it can be $2,500 for the 3 nights over. So I raised it up just partial of what we've increased, just because we've done supplemental budgets in the last 2 years. So that's kind of the transportation piece for activities on that. And then here's our combined. So this is our activities director. It's part-time activities director, part-time assistant principal. And we have just the different conference dues and things like that will all come out of here. And different awards for different nights and medical supplies, tape and that kind of stuff. Then here we come to our combined activities. So it's where boys and girls combined. So there's track. And then middle school track. And here's golf, boys and girls. Tennis, boys and girls. Cross country. Here's debate. And then decal and quiz bowl. And then dramatics is one act and like spring play, all the different play. FBLA. Elementary instrumental, so this has to do with the 5th grade band. And then here's the high school instrumental. This is the high school band. And here's the high school and middle school vocal. They combine together. Then here's our student publications. Middle school and high school student publications. Our FFA. Here's our FCCLA and ProStart. Our homecoming. And then student council, high school and middle school. National Honor Society. Prom. It's kind of relaxed. I do think it's good to kind of see what activities do cost. You know, I think it's a good reference. And our contingency, that's when we do a contingency transfer. We did up a little bit last year. Typically it's, you know, 3 to 5%, and we're still on the low side, but we haven't necessarily had to go to it very often. So that's our total general fund budget is at 7.8 million. So let's go to how are we going to fund all of those expenditures. So what I did here is I kind of highlighted, you'll see in orange, the taxes. That's part of the state formula. And then here's the other part in orange, this 3.2. So those two pieces together make up the state formula. That's the largest portion of what we get. What we don't collect in taxes in the state gives us the difference. In yellow, you know, the utility tax, the county apportionment, bank franchise, the other revenues formulas have changed. We get a certain amount and then they start withholding it each year and then they give us a balance back. So we'll get the dollar amounts in, but it'll affect our formula. So I just got to highlight on those what we do get with those. In the long run, they'll make this other revenue formula over the next 5 years. We'll benefit from that. We should benefit from it from the way it sits now. So I'll just kind of go through our revenue. So you can see this is with the continued opt-out of 100,000. We have 250,000 of what was passed, you know, 3.5 years ago. Actually 3 years ago. So we continue asking for 100 different taxes, prior year taxes, penalties and fees if somebody's paying late, interest we earn, admissions to our activities, activity tickets, different tournament and activity income from people using our facilities, rentals. Actually, some of that comes the same portion. The educational co-op, so they'll pay us $32,000 in this first year for that part-time position, and then the other services that we do for them. So that's kind of gaining that back. Medicaid administration, we get Medicaid from students. That's part of that billing process we do. There's entities that are more governmental. They'll pay. They don't necessarily owe tax, but they'll pay in lieu of taxes because their property in theory could be taxed, so they pay in that. Our state formula, our state apportionment, other state revenues. There'll be some miscellaneous payments that they make us through the year. Here's our Title I and Title II funding of Charles Perkins funding. So with the general fund, it shows we use a fund balance of about 340,000 for a total budget of 7.8 million. So that would be where we bring our revenues in order to cover our expenditures. And then we've been using fund balance over the past number of years. This year we just within the limit that the state allowed. This will put us a little more to where the state with the new rules where they feel we should be with that. So that's the general fund. That's much longer than all the rest. Any questions on general fund before we go to the next?
Oh, looks good.
Okay, we'll go on the capital outlay. So with capital outlay, it does break out somewhere different where this is the elementary. So this will be the textbooks and softwares, their technology equipment, their classroom equipments. Then there's the middle school, kind of broke down the same line items. And there's the high school, and they're somewhat similar here, but from year to year there can be some decent sized changes depending on the curriculum that's purchased or where they're at in the technology plans. The library, this is then all of the books and media related to books that they purchase in a year. And where we had to change a couple years ago is they had an online, what's it called, where they have all their online books. We started taking that out of the capital instead of the general fund because we were allowed to on there. Technology purchases. That's kind of Steve's department. Technology purchase more like the server pieces, and then we have some softwares that we purchase on a year-to-year basis. We no longer have the auto shop. The upkeeps of grounds. This is, the biggest portions of this, is the middle school boiler project and then the high school roof project. But in the elementary bathroom, there's a various number of projects within there. And same with their kind of equipment purchases and that. The transportation, this is the purchase of that new bus. And then they have some, we always leave them some, because something goes out each year. We purchase a radiator. This year's was quite a bit larger with that motor, but. And then here's it's more than just our copiers, it's our copiers, our printers, and our postage meter. That's the lease agreements for those. Here's our debt service. Our elementary is done. It was done last year. The other elementary was done. We still have our high school portion that we're paying on. The elementary this series was done. Our REIT loan was part of the elementary, and that's done. The slope loan, this is that zero interest loan we get from the state, where it's 10 years worth of payments. And I believe this is year 4. And that will make a payment. So our debt service is $670,000 that comes out of capital outlay in the year. And our activities, capital outlay purchases. I printed out what that was, because I always forget. So with this, it's a piano rebuild of the grand piano, the DSU facility agreement, a wrestling mat, and then in next spring, the resurfacing of the north tennis courts. So that's kind of what that portion is. And then so that's a 2.26 million. Then where we fund that from? We bring in about 2.4 in taxes. There's prior year's taxes and interest and penalties and revenue, and then this is that grant for that clean diesel bus grant. And then in the past year and then this year, if we set $400,000 aside for the early payment of those bonds, we can do that for about 7-8 years, pay those off and save ourselves about $600,000 to $700,000 by doing early payment on those bonds. And then we use fund balance of 200 to be able to do that set aside. That's where we come up with the 2.69 million. So that's our capital outlay fund.
Looking good.
And the excitement builds.
Excitement builds.
You can see the culmination of all this excitement. And
We'll go
So you
through
missed this last year,
I
Leah.
did.
Sitting in this chair, you were in that
Yeah.
chair
Right,
last
yeah.
it
year.
gets better every year.
So each year does it. Here's our special education. So we have our mild to moderate program. You can see there are different salaries and teacher salaries, aide salaries, temp salaries, benefits, very similar to the general fund structure, professional development. Textbook instructional, that has to do with if it's listed on IEP. If it's not, it's general fund or capital outlay, but if it's on an IEP, then it comes through the special education program. And we have two portions. This is our local portion. There's the IDA, which is federal. So these are federal dollars given for that same purpose. And it employs 2.5 people. And so that's our total of our mild to moderate for next year. And it varies a lot by the number of IEPs that we have within our district. Here's our severe program. You kind of see a lot of changes to that. We have day programs. Day programs are when children attend somewhere that's outside the district, but they come back and live with their families. There's then residential programs where they're placed, and that's where they stay on a weekly basis. May come back for weekends or may stay down there for the.
Have we had a big jump in students partaking, or why is that going up so?
Well, it does vary. Sometimes you go back and forth between day programs and residential programs.
Mhm.
And so, let's get the picture of the total. If you kind of look, our day programs has a jump, which day programs are less expensive than residential. And if we can place a student in that's nice. Our residential programs, some has to do with if a student moves in or where they're at, but we have the portion that we pay for, and the portion that the federal government pays for. And two will meet, so we've seen a little bit of a jump in both those programs.
2 years ago, we were at 153.7.
Yeah.
And a lesser year the year before.
It-
There's changes on the program, or the
Yep.
student center in the programs is the big variable.
Yeah. That can vary from year to year, and we did get our rate increases, that they provide us. We do have current numbers in there as we sit with our students now. We don't necessarily get that from year to year before. We have our early childhood program. This is kind of the 3 to 5 up to school age program. And then we do get a small amount of federal dollars for that early childhood program. We have our nursing, if they're related, nursing services related to an IEP will come out of this area. Our psychology services, this is the testing that the school sites do from Prairie Lakes. That's the portion we pay for that. We have our speech therapy program, and salaries and benefits and pretty similar from year to year. These will change just depending on where the IEP team determines their case. So we have our physical therapy and our occupational therapy and what we pay. And these are, we contract with the hospital and what we pay each year. And then we have our admin services, so we like the director and then the co-op administration on there for that. We have our transportation costs, so this has to do with our transportation for special education students. We have our driver's salaries. We have also some expenses where we're transporting to a day program back and forth each day. So that's our transportation for that. And then, so that's the expenses for special education. And our revenue is how we fund it. And just like the general fund, special education has a state formula. And so they have number of children in each category. They give us a certain dollar for that. And we have our local taxes we levy, and anything above that is what they give us on that. So you can kind of see our valuation rise. We'll pay more in local, and then the state will contribute less, mostly because of that. The overall dollar amount is up on that. You can see where we bring in prior years. We do get Medicaid dollars for students that are eligible for Medicaid. We have 2 different programs. We can get that through on Medicaid. Our federal dollars we have down here. And then fund balance use, we're projected to use about 44,000 of fund balance. And that's something we gotta watch. If we get too close, if we go negative, there's an option to go to the external cost fund. We wanna make sure we maintain a good fund balance. We can provide all the services for our students. That's special education. Now we get to the real quick ones. Question, yeah?
Alright. What are the categories that they're funded by? You said they're funded by
there's-
the number of children in
Yep.
the category.
There's, I think 16 or 17 different categories. It can be speech language, it can be multiple, it can be traumatic brain, have just a series of categories. Autism's one.
And then they're funded by the number of categories that child
Number
fits
of-
into, or the number of children?
The number of children in that category.
In each category.
Yeah,
So
so
that
they-
it could be a whole bunch of categories per child.
Well,
Like one child could fit into a whole bunch of categories.
yeah, there's a
and they're
multiple,
funded for each one.
there's a
Does it be
multiple
multiple?
category actually also.
It's a separate category.
Oh.
And then the state collects our data, runs the average of the average child cost, and that's how they determine how they fund us. And some are more and some are less, depending on specific services to the child, but
So like traveling, say you're in a district far away from the needed services,
Okay.
would they account for that in the funding of that?
they don't. I mean, in theory then, if you had this overspend, you'd go to the extraordinary cost fund, and then you'd use that as your reasoning for the
See,
need
and
to
that's
go
why
there.
the budget is always adjusting, because you don't know what
Right.
you're.
And they may have to look for a day program, like, we may have Sioux Falls, close by. Out west, they're gonna look for a different type of a day program, just because they can't transport a day program that far.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Then we have our pension fund, which we won't, when we receive the levy for, this is something that was removed. And so in the past, we've used a portion of our pension levy to pay for the SDRS. When the state removed the pension levy, they moved that to the general fund side, so it's all accounted for there. We'll still have the early retirement payments on there, so it's estimated pretty high. I think this is 6 or 7 people, but we just kind of set a budget of 184, and what it comes down to is how many we accept in the next year. But for the funding of that, then you can see it's just straight out of fund balance, because we're not really bringing revenues. We do have some prior years that are owed to us, and then they get some penalties, and there's a little bit of interest, but we pretty much pay that out of fund balance the next 4 years until the pension fund is no longer. So that's the pension fund.
And that's a designated fund, that's not
Yeah.
from that fund balance.
Yeah. We have our bond redemption fund. This is the bond portions of the high school that we have a specific levy for. Our payment in this year will be 250 with 116 interest, so about 411. And then our revenues for that will bring in about 407 taxes, some prior year, different things that went up. We set our levy pretty much the same, so we pull in what we expend on that for bond redemption. The 407, we actually will ask 412,000 because we never pull in the full amount of what we ask. There's always some that are miscellaneous, so we'd ask 412 in order to get the 407 on that. And then we have the food service fund.
I have a question back to the pension fund.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We have 4 years left, and I know that it's no longer funded,
Yeah.
but it's supposed to sunset out, and there is a timeline at which you would get penalized for having a pension fund?
We'd have, at the end of the term, you have to transfer it to your general fund, anything left.
So at the end of those 4 years, it's
Yeah,
done.
we can't carry it anymore, so we'd have to forget.
It's not a penalty with this.
No
Yeah.
penalty, it just gets pushed to a different.
Yeah.
And remember, we have general fund cap
Yeah.
balances based on last year's legislation that we have to meet based on our various months, and we get to take our lowest month of fund balance to calculate that amount on, so.
Is that gonna affect going into the next funding as far as getting dollars
Yeah,
with that?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, sorry.
No, that's good. No, that's good. In my 11 years, I've only had a few times, so I haven't stopped, so that's good. I don't know if it was
Gives you a
just-
chance to breathe.
Well, there's only
listening.
4 of us, I figured we gotta pick it up for
Yeah,
5.
there you go. With the food service program, we have some supervision salaries, but otherwise everything else is done through our contracted services. We have our contracted services line item here with CVM. We have repairs, maintenance. We own facilities, equipment, everything. They purchase the food and provide the labor and prepare it. So then there's a change a little bit in computer equipment for one time because we're switching to the in-campus system. So we have to get a few new pieces for that, and then same with software in the first year as we make the updates.
So I moved for that one.
Yeah, it's a hard conversion right now, but it's getting there. It's gonna be really good once we get everything turned over, because there's a lot of data that's got to get moved, but it's been going well. And our commodities are projected to go up. Non-capitalized equipment, we've been doing equipment purchases each year. These are more the smaller items. The larger items, there's a new accounting style where we have to purchase it out of a kind of a payables fund, and then we have to show it in our depreciation.
Okay.
So we're showing the expense and the depreciation instead of in capital equipment. So instead of showing the 50,000 1 year, we'll show 5,000 of it over the next so many years. So that's a little bit of a change, but really didn't change what we do. But so there's our food service program, and then we'll see where it's.
And so basically, line 529 will no longer be there, it'll just be your depreciation as opposed to capitalized equipment?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
capitalized equipment doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah, they'll just go.
All right.
Yeah. After 3 years, I'll delete it off the line. And for funding the food service program, our student sales bring about 250,000. Our adult sales about 7. Our a la carte about 60. We get a few reimbursed expenses through state and local. Our federal reimbursements, so we get, with free meals and reduced meals, they pay for a portion of it, but they also pay for a portion of the paid meals, anywhere between like 25 to 45 cents per meal. So that's what we get in our federal reimbursements for our food service program. And we have our commodities, which are donated to us. So the total of the food service program is $569,000 on that. And then
Sales to adults on the food service program, when I feed off my daughter's lunch tray, it costs me
Okay.
more?
if you know, but if you purchase a meal,
Okay, But it
Yeah.
just goes like, I say Audrey's buying my lunch,
Yeah,
but they registered as there's an adult. with
adult, yeah,
problem.
yeah, because you get charged more.
Will that show up in
You're
Anthony
welcome.
campus when I go to check my
It does,
grades?
yeah,
So I'll see how many adults and how much I've eaten there?
yeah, and where
Oh, I
currently
can't
shows that
wait.
too.
It's
Yeah,
so exciting.
yeah. Yeah, you'll see. And then you'll be able to see all the cookies your kids are taking. In our driver's ed program, what we pay in salaries and benefits, vehicle usage, and then supplies. It's about 18.1. And then pretty much for funding that, it's, since the state has moved into a self-sufficient fund, it's charges to student charges. And then they're currently, if you notice from our balance sheets, they're sitting negative. The program ends, so we'll pay back 400. We've been trying to pay a little bit back each year until we become a level fund on that. Our health insurance fund, I'll show the revenue side first. A little bit of interest, what was charged for health insurance premiums. It was stop loss. If we have a large claim, it'll pay us the difference, and so we'll bring in a little revenue there where they reimburse our claim. On the expenditure side, where we pay in our insurance, what we pay for our insurance, our reinsurance, and then all of our fees and stuff, and what we pay in our claims. So a total about 1.23 million. Which brings us to our very bottom dollar, a total budget of 14.419 million compared to the prior years. And that ties us back to this document, which has a 14.419. And then this one's more of a summary, which we've seen before, but it shows us where we're going to finance from, where our appropriations are coming from, all kind of in one sheet. And that is the proposed 2017-18 school budget.
Wow. Do you frame this last one? Put it up on the wall because of all the
I-
work and effort it takes to get it?
We actually sign it, and I do actually keep it right by me. I got prior years behind. But then
So
I also
moved.
turn it over to others.
All right, we have a motion to accept the or to approve
The approved.
to approve the proposed budget.
So first what we're doing is a motion acknowledging we held the budget hearing. Yep, number 14.
Okay,
So moved. Second.
motion and a second that we held the hearing. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion stating that we had held our hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Then item number 15.
I just got a quick show ya, because on 15 now, it's the budget, and then it has the levies on it. So here's kind of our annual, but it'll show the totals of all the funds, and it'll show what we asked for. So in general fund, egg property is 1.507, owner-occupied 3.372, non-egg commercial 6.79, and those are all set by the state. We don't have any say in those. Special education fund is 1.461, pension fund 0. Capital outlay, we have to ask for dollars now, so it's 2.418, and bond redemption is 412, and the opt-out's 100,000. So that's what we would need to ask in order to have the revenues for our current budget, or the proposed budget.
So then we would need a motion to approve the budget for the 27-18 school year and the property tax request, which is listed there.
So moved.
Mr. Moore has the motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Nelson. Further questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the budget and the property tax request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare we have passed. Item number 16, supplemental budget and contingency transfers for the 2016-2017 year.
So these are the areas where I predicted wrong. In the budget from like last year. I don't do all the little ones, 'cause there's quite a few, but little ones, but we just do the major items each year. So as you'll see, on the supplemental budget, we had a middle school grant that we received, And pretty much we expend it, and then we've got money back from the state, so, it's to show that we received it. We also received the middle school EPSCoR grant, the innovation EPSCoR grant, that's 17,000, so we spent 17, we got in 17, I think it was like 69. In the appropriations, these are contingency transfers, that co-curricular travel, we were over by about 10.5, and then printing costs, we were over by about 6,500. So those would come from contingency. And then in the budget we saw, we took the co-curricular travel up a little bit, and with printing, we took up just a slight little bit, because we're going to do some things to see if we can maybe hold that back to where we think it might be. And then in the capital outlay, the auto shop building ended up being slightly higher than projected, but then the state reimbursed us for that, so it was no loss to us on that. And then the boiler project, this is kind of odd because it's a next year project, but we have expenditures coming down, so we can have done before school. So we're expending it now, so we'd add a budget for it. And now we leave next year's budget the same, and in essence we underspend by that amount, and then that goes back to fund balance. And then the bus engine replacement, that was that engine replacement where we didn't plan for. And that would be the difference, and then it comes from the fund balance piece of that. So that's our supplemental budgets and contingency transfers for 16-17.
And the recommendation would be that we approve those. Is there a motion and a second for discussion? Mr. Miller moves for the supplemental budget and transfer. Is there a second? Mr. Moore has the second. Further questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Declare that has passed. All right, then we're back down to number 21, according to my record keeping, which is the committee's recommendation for the 2017-2018 health insurance. Mr. Brooks, you have just been a chatterbox tonight.
Yeah. Is it all right if I keep going?
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'll take it after him, so.
Okay, sure.
Blow it up a little bit. So our committee met, we ended up coming back an additional time, and have some changes, but what the committee kind of came up with, we added another plan, Plan D, which has a higher deductible, higher family deductible, a higher out-of-pocket, to give staff members the option if they wanted, if they don't use plans much, another option where they could keep the rates down. So we kept the HSA plan, the B and the C, as is, and then added this Plan D. This shows the committee's recommended where the rates were, it shows the district contribution and what the out-of-pocket would be to the employee. And on the dental side, that all stayed exactly the same. Delta held the rates, so it's the same for this next year. And so what it ended up being, that each plan changed differently because family plans went up more than individual plans. And it didn't apply the exact percent across the board, but the total percent ends up being a 9.35% increase to the health insurance. What the effect of all staff, what they would pay. But for the most part, like if a individual plan went up 50, the plus one went up 75, and the family went up 100. It's kind of the breakdown. And then the district contribution picked up at 25. So it kind of shows their pockets. But it was we had a very good discussion, a lot of things to go through, and it wasn't easy to arrive at, but I think we came to a good consensus. So it's the committee's recommendation. Any of the board members want to speak on it from the committee, or?
I guess since I was the only one that was there. Yeah, as Mitch indicated, it was a very good discussion that we had, and Wellmark worked very hard with us to come back, and we originally did not have that D plan, and that was something that, as we discussed with the board, with the members of the committee, that we thought it's similar to the HSA, but it has more of the security of a traditional program. And so it'll be interesting to see. The other thing that I think is good, and kudos to Mitch and Wellmark for getting this done, we were able to get this decided as a committee on the last working day of the school year, so that everything will go out to our staff. They'll have the summer to think about it. Other times it's been that we decided somewhere over the summers, probably closer to the time that school starts, this way everybody has the summer to think about it and go forward. I think the other thing is, if we do comparisons with our program and our rates, which Mitch had done and shared with the committee, we're extremely competitive with other schools, maybe even to the point that we're better than several schools and things there. And if you know anything about the insurance market out there, a 9% increase across the board
Is good.
is pretty darn good.
That's really good.
So,
And the big thing on D versus the HSA, it looks like it's the same, but Tom mentioned it, there's a copay on D, which the HSA didn't have a copay, this went all right to it, where now, if they were comfortable with the B and C having that copay, they could go to a higher deductible and still have a copay that they could use with it.
and that seemed to be a pain point of
Yeah.
staying away from the HSA, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll know where everybody falls when they do their registration in the fall, and when we get back for the start of the next school year. Mr. Nelson, you look like you have a question.
I don't,
Okay, very good.
but if you want me to, I can think of one.
Really, Steve, I think we would, if the board is so inclined, accept a motion to accept the recommendation of the insurance committee.
So moved.
Mr. Nelson moves, is there a second? Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the insurance committee recommendations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Okay. Chapter 10, then. Talks a little bit about advocacy, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we will just address it a little bit as we go through. You know, at every school board meeting, we have to make decisions, and probably none were much bigger than the decisions we made tonight relative to what we're doing for our budget and things. And as it says there, we've got that ultimate responsibility to students in your school, to the parents in the community, and things that we serve. We probably understand education as a board here better than most people do, I would hope. And we're in a situation where when we're probably as close to a group of people that we end up getting elected are our constituents, and we see all of our constituents no matter where we go, whether we're doing something in downtown, or if they may come in to see you at your place of employment or whatever. And we have an important message that we need to work at, and this is something through my association with the State School Board Association, beginning to see this so much more important is we need to work hard to continue to deliver our important message to our state and our federal representatives. Also, we have to be sure that we do the media and the community. The message that we have, we've got to make education a top priority. And one of the things that we're seeing more and more emphasis being placed on, which isn't in the slides, but we have to really place an emphasis on public education. As of right now, from Washington, D.C., on even through our state legislature, we're seeing less and less emphasis being placed on funding for public education and more for alternatives, whether they be vouchers or whether they would be for tax dollars being spent on other sides. Our budgets continue to need to grow. Our legislatures were very, very good to us 2 years ago with the passage of the 1.5% sales tax. And again, much of that was due to advocacy that each and every person was a part of to help that with the public education. We talk each year about getting with our legislators. We're fortunate here. We're able to bring those legislators in prior to session, and Joel and board members, and we do this as a District 8 type thing. I think it's very important that we know our legislators, and more importantly, our legislators know who we are. And obviously, there's lots of pressure on those legislative people, but we certainly have to be sure that we're telling our stories. With the legislators, sometimes it's difficult, but we do have to be friendly at all times. We want to, be sure that we have those contacts not only when we want their help, but also throughout the year and visit with them. We've got to be reasonable. They have lots of opinions that come their way, and we need to be sure that we commend things when we consider them maybe to be the right things. We've got to be cooperative. I think the biggest line in advocacy that we have to remember is just like a state legislator, just like a representative to Congress or a federal senator, we are elected officials just like they are. We are representing a constituent group of local citizens who have elected us to do the best that we can do. And many times that aspect of us being elected officials is a good trump card to be able to play with those people. We've got to be cooperative, we've got to be realistic, we've got to be a good opponent, we've got to fight the issue and not the person. And legislators are always looking for alternatives, compromises, whatever you want to say. Take advantage of public forums, whether it be the Cracker Barrels that we have, the legislative days that the School Board Association has, and if possible, visit with them during those times rather than taking time away. All of our legislators appreciate emails, and that's been a wonderful way that we can contact them. Going to committee hearings is always an interesting opportunity. I've never had to testify yet in front of a committee. I believe Mr. Jorgensen has had that wonderful opportunity.
The privilege.
A time or two on there. And again, when we, but that's important that we tell our story, and I think that's an honor that we have that opportunity to go before the committee hearings. And when we testify, identify who we are and whether the fact that we're represented in an official position, such as our school board, etc. Testimony should be short, answer questions, and if you don't know the answers, be sure you say you don't know the answer. Don't make one up. How was that for your shortest PowerPoint, huh?
That's good.
All right, let me take the agenda, Steve, or do you want to take it?
Well, if you've already got it,
I've got it right here, I can just take it, if you want.
Sure.
Well, we're making it easy on, you and I are going to have that same discussion we had on Friday, if this keeps going, where Mitch runs half of this and I run the other part,
Well, I mean, that's probably not you. That works for me. I can just push the cord.
So that's our PowerPoint. On to number 23, consider appointment of a new board member. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So
Well, would you make the full motion of who we're nominating? Lori Schultz. Okay. Mr. Moore is making a motion that we nominate Lori Schultz for the open position on the Madison Central School Board. That position will start July board meeting, will last for 1 year, and then she will need to seek re-election for a 1-year term following that. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Mr. Miller seconds. We have motion and second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of Mrs. Schultz being our new board member replacing Mr. Moore, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare passes unanimously. I would like to make the next motion, and my motion would be that a proclamation of thanks, whereas Charlie Moore was elected and has served as a board member of the Madison Central School District for the past 4 years. Whereas he served on many standing and special committees, therefore let this proclamation be spread upon the official minutes of the Madison Central School District in recognition of Charlie Moore's service to the students, staff, and patrons of the Madison Central School District, dated this 19th day of June 2017, and Mr. Jorgensen, the superintendent, and I have signed it. I make the motion. If I can get a second, we can put that in our minutes.
I second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Miller seconds, and we have that. And Mr. Moore, we will represent your plaque also, that you graciously returned. Thank you very much, Charlie. It was super to have you on board.
Yeah, it's been an honor to do it.
And now put that up by the wall lines, okay? both
I
of
will.
those?
Put it up by the wall eyes.
The moving company moved those.
Yep. I will just stick it in my truck and take it down.
And so, Mr. Moore, since you have been aptly thanked, and this is your last meeting, I think item number 25 is your opportunity to
So
make...
move to adjourn of the regular meeting.
All right, so Mr. Moore has made a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Well, they're going to die for lack of a second. Thank you, Mrs. Cecil. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. We are adjourned.